Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. Now today we are going to be going over the complete care guide of the Crested Gecko. And of course, to help us out with this, we'll be talking about the 5 main care topics, that being enclosure size, heating and lighting, humidity, the diet, and then lastly, what to fill the enclosure with. So with all that out of the way, it gets us time to sit back, relax, dive into some Crested Gecko care, and roll the intro. And real quick guys, before we get this video started, I just want to make a little deal with you. Now, if you do watch the video and you find that these care tips really did help you out in caring for your Crested Gecko, maybe, just maybe, you could help me out by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, things like that, you know, just a win-win situation. That's about it. Let's get into the video. Then kicking off this list, we are going to be starting with number 1, the enclosure size for your Crested Gecko. Now, when it comes to the enclosure size for your Crested Gecko, that's really going to be dependent on, well, how old your gecko is and how big it is. Now, when we're talking about something like an adult Crested Gecko, something that's reached full size, full maturity, you're going to want an enclosure going from pretty much an 18 by 18 to 24, or the equivalent aquarium size, which would usually be around 20 to 29 gallons. This is the perfect size for an adult, gives them plenty of room to move around and really just live out the rest of their lives. However, that's only for the adults. Now, I don't recommend you putting something like a baby gecko that you just got in an enclosure of that size, simply because it's going to be very overwhelming to the animal by being, you know, pretty much this big in an enclosure that's like this big. Now, personally, for my babies, I utilize something like one of those shoebox bins. These are pretty much 5 or 6 quart bins when they're pretty much a hatchling, anywhere around 1 to 5 grams. Usually after that, when they start getting a little bit more of an age, a little bit more size to them, is to that point where I put them in something like a 12 by 12 by 18 or a 10-gallon tank. As the animal continues to grow, you know, somewhere around that sub-adult size, it's that point where I feel comfortable in putting it inside, again, that final enclosure, which would be that 18 by 18 by 24. But moving on, let's get into our next topic, which of course going to be number 2, heating and lighting. When it comes to heating and lighting for the Crested Gecko, well, it's pretty easy, to be honest. Crested Geckos come from New Caledonia. They, of course, like a pretty nice temperature. Anywhere from room temps at 72 to 78 degrees is really that sweet spot for the animal. Now, with that being said, there are a few things to take into consideration. Number 1, they don't like heat. Anything above pretty much 80 degrees is actually going to be detrimental to the animal, and you really want to keep it below 80. Anything below 80 is pretty much okay for the animal. However, you can also get it too cold. Now again, that 72 to 78 is a really good temperature for them. However, if for some reason, you know, as far as room temp goes, your room temp for you is like 60 to 65, I don't know, maybe that's you. Hey man, I'm not judging. All I'm saying is, if that is the case, you are gonna need to use some supplemental heating, something like a heating pad plugged into a thermostat, ceramic heat emitter, basking light, things like this to make sure the temp stays at that optimal area of that 70 plus degrees. And then adding on to the second part of this topic is, of course, the lighting section. Again, not too much to do, man. Pretty much everything's optional. There's not really any necessity when it comes to Crested Geckos. There's a lot of controversy on if UVB is beneficial or you should use UVB. You need to use UVB. I know for years and years and years, breeders have not used UVB and been okay. However, that's not to say that you shouldn't use it, man. Personally, for me, I do use UVB. I do use UVB for some of my animals, some of my Crested Geckos. I saw them basking under it, things like that. It does seem to have some added benefits, and if the animal's utilizing it, why not use it? That's about it for lighting. You don't actually need lighting as long as you're getting some sort of day or night cycle, that being like leaving the lights on and then turning them off, things like that. If you are planning on going bioactive with your Crested Gecko, some sort of plant light like an LED or just a regular CFL plant light is what you'll need. That's more for the plants beneficial than the actual animal itself, but hey, I figured I'd just throw that into the video. Then diving into our next topic, let's get into it. Number 3, humidity you're going to be needing for your Crested Gecko. Now, when it comes to the humidity needs of a Crested Gecko, these guys are somewhat of a tropical species. Of course, you're not going to be utilizing some sort of humidity like you would for a leopard gecko or bearded dragon. You're actually going to need to mist and have some sort of ambient humidity in there. Another recommended humidity for the Crested Gecko is going to be a span of 60 to 80%. Now, what I mean by this is the fact that they do like that spike of 80%. However, you don't really want to leave it constant at that 80%. You're going to want a dip off into the 60. A couple of ways to do this is just a quick misting, letting it spike up, and then throughout the day drop back down. There are a couple of ways. I got a video right here if you want to see it. I don't want to dive too long on, how to keep an enclosure moist and retain humidity. Not when I made another video on it. I'm so sorry. You'll have to watch 2 videos. That is, I apologize. Yeah, pretty much mist, have some good substrate in there, making sure that substrate is not completely dried out. There's just a couple of ways you can do to get that humidity where you need it for the Crested Gecko. Alright folks, so we are almost down on the list. We just got 2 more topics to go. I had the 4 up because it's the 4th topic, but I meant 2. So what do you think? Is this helping you? You getting some good solid care tips, or are you just not liking the video? Let me know down there in the comments. Anyway, let's get into it. Number 4, the diet for the Crested Gecko. I'm gonna say it one more time. This part is easy. Really, Crested Geckos, all in all, easy animal to take care of. As far as the diet for the Crested Gecko goes, really, people have already done it for you. It's the Crested Gecko diet from some manufacturers such as Pangea, Rapashi, a couple of different other ones that I can't really think of right now. They make a complete diet for the animal. It's pretty much a dehydrated powder. You mix in some water, get it that nice, applesauce, ketchup consistency, put it in, they lap it up, and you're good to go. It's literally that easy. That's not to say it's the only food they can be on. You can supplement with some little insects, some crickets, some roaches, red runners, lobsters, dubia, things like that as an added treat. However, the Crested Gecko diet is going to be the main where they're going to get all their vitamins, minerals, calcium, things like that, and it's really just the base of their diet. The main part of their diet is literally gonna be just you mixing stuff into a deli cup and then putting it into the enclosure. It's that easy, folks. I cannot make this up. Alright folks, and here we go. The last topic we're going to be talking about. We know how to do the enclosure size, what heating and lighting setup we need, how much we need to retain that humidity in there, what the diet is, but there's still one more. There's still one more thing before we know absolutely how to care for the Crested Gecko, and that is going to be number 5, what to fill the enclosure with. Let's get into it. Now, when it comes to what to fill the enclosure with for the Crested Gecko, there are a few things you're going to be needing. Number 1, of course, to retain that humidity, a pretty deep substrate. Personally, for me, I do my own little substrate mixes. It's going to be a topsoil sand peat moss mix. I've known some other things, such as like cocoa husk, cocoa fiber, Repti soil by Zoomed, I think, are a couple of other great options. Pretty much any tropical substrate you can get is what's going to be best for the animal. Then with Crested Geckos being arboreal, you're going to want a couple of different little ledges and branches spanning horizontally and vertically to make sure they have all the climbing stuff they need for that enrichment. A couple of different hides. I like cork tubes. I think they work great. I find that most of my Crested Geckos actually prefer using the cork tubes than anything else to hide during the day, and then during at dusk to night I'll see them coming out and then exploring around. And then the last part is to make sure that the animal feels secure. You're going to want some foliage in there, whether that be live plants or artificial. Either way works pretty much. You just want something that where the animal can hide into to make himself feel comfortable. Well folks, there you have it. How to take care of a Crested Gecko. We went over the 5 main topics, and by now, I mean, if the video was good, you should know how to take care of one. Let me know. Well, rate me 1 out of 10. How was this care guide compared to the other care guides? I mean, who needs those when you have this? I can't say it with a straight face. This care guide. Alright folks, I just want to wrap it up for today. It's time to do my outro. As always, huge shout out to Zen Habitats. If you're unfamiliar with Zen Habitats, they make enclosures like this one right here. Wow, look at that thing. I could just stare at that thing for the 3 seconds it stays on. Oh, it's gone now. Zen Habitats. Yes folks, if you're looking for an amazing enclosure but for a Crested Gecko, I highly recommend their 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. Yes, that is going above the 18 by 18 by 24. Well, not the height, but it's gonna be bigger these ways. Send me an awesome enclosure farm, and they really appreciate that added room, and all in all, it's just a fantastic looking enclosure. Win-win, looks nice, great for the animal. You can get yours right down there in the description if you want to. And other than that, you guys know the spiel by now. I got that Facebook, I got that Instagram, we got some merch right here. You can find those all down there in the description. You can also find Patreon, yes, patreon.com/DBCB Exotics. You'll get the exclusive DBCB Exotics experience, man. This includes going behind the scenes of the business. How does I can't even say it right. How does DBCB Exotics operate? Wham! If you want to see some Crested Geckos mating, some babies, some eggs hatching, first dibs on the eggs, a discount on the babies I produce, you can find all that stuff at Patreon, man. It's a cool little thing. We got a great community going on. We've really been gaining traction, so we got a couple of you guys in there. I enjoy it, man. I have a good time over there. It starts as low as $1 a month. That's pretty cool. That's $1 a month admission to get into the cool kids club at DBCB Exotics. I think that's worth it. I don't know if you do. If maybe you do, maybe go down there. Your name gets to be in the outro too. The one we're gonna roll right